Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
Welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. Tonight, there's just two of us, Dwight and myself. Dave is off this week, and I'm sure he's probably having more fun than we are, whatever he's doing. So we are going to talk about Project Indigo. What the heck is it, you ask? Well, let's bring Dwight in, and we'll talk about it. Hey, Dwight.
Hey, Greg. Good evening, everyone.
So, Project Indigo, very interesting name, and we could almost say it's Pi Day because the icon is capital P with a small I for Project Indigo. All right, so enough of the nonsense. Let's get to what this is. It is a new camera app from Adobe, and it is crazy good. Would that be an understatement, Dwight?
Yeah, I think so. I can't claim to be an expert in this thing yet. However, I'm very curious, and from what I've seen so far, it's very interesting.
Yeah. So it only came out, 2-3 days ago, and our knowledge about this app is somewhat limited, but I should say that Norm Savagar, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name, from the podcast Facebook group, kind of tagged us in a post about this app and said he would be curious to see, what we thought of it. And I got looking at it and I thought, yeah, this is pretty good. We got to do a show on this. And so I don't know. There's so many things going through my mind already. But I guess we should just say we got I made an outline of some talking points from the, there's an article on Adobe's website. Forget which branch of websites it's from. Is it research maybe? But anyway, it's a really good camera, and it's, oh boy, where do I start? Dwight, help me out.
No, it's that's how new it is, right? So I think what Greg is experiencing right now is a little bit of being overwhelmed with kind of how this thing lays out and the direction that this thing could go in. I mean, this is, how can I sum it up? This is an app now that is attempting to make mobile photography more like SLR photography. And in general, you can take a picture that is a JPEG and a RAW, at the same time. And then, of course, it's Adobe. And if you open it up in Lightroom, it'll open the DNG file or the RAW file. And then you have the option of editing in HDR mode or not, which I would prefer not to edit in HDR mode and just kind of do my own adjustments. So the little bit I've been able to play with it, I think right now, it is really interesting. Now, I will mention that Greg and I did do some test shots over the weekend. Greg's got some examples. I've got some examples. And we're pretty impressed with what we've seen just kind of out of the box here and not studying the app too much.
Yeah. It's we're not going to go over the app layout and all that stuff because I think that would just take up too much time compared to what we really want to dig into here. The UI, it's pretty decent. Like, I think it's relatively easy to use, and there's a simplified layout, or you can get into some pro controls, which is like exposure values, manual focus, that sort of thing. And so I think you kind of just covered the first couple of points on our outline, Dwight. The next one is computational photography strategies. So what this app will do is it will underexpose a little more aggressively than usual from than other apps might do to preserve the highlights. And then we've talked about this before, where if you overexpose the highlights from the iPhone camera, you're not going to get them back. So, it by default, this will underexpose a little more, just to keep those highlights preserved. And so another thing that we noticed in the article was basically zero shutter lag, even for like a raw file, because what it's doing is it's capturing frames as long as the viewfinder is on. And what it will do is it will capture and merge up to 22 frames aligned per shot, reducing the noise by a square root of n. And Dwight could tell you more about that than I can. But I think the idea that it's actually capturing frames, like I don't want people to be alarmed by that, because the Apple camera does the same thing. That's why it's so quick at taking a JPEG. And most camera apps that have zero shutter lag are just capturing, a JPEG image. So what this one does, what Indigo does, is it's taking all these frames, and then when you do tap the shutter, then it says, okay, that's the key frame, and it's going to take all the frames taken like literally a fraction of a second just before that, and it's going to align them up, blend them together, do whatever it takes to give you a smoother image. And there may be a little bit of grain in some images, but it really does its best to minimize it. And another point that I'm looking at here is minimal shooting to retain texture. So that benefits both JPEG and RAW outputs. So it's, it has a little bit of, Apple technology, I guess you could say, built into the way it works. But I think the fact that it's, capturing all these frames while the viewfinder's on, that's kind of like an Apple type of thing, the way the camera works. But I think it's a pretty smart way to get the best DNG file that you can get from a camera. Got anything to add to that, Dwight?
Yeah, I think, when you were talking about there's a little bit of math involved here. So when you're doing so there's two modes in this camera. There's photo and then there's night mode. And they're saying, and I haven't done a night mode photo yet, Greg. I don't think you have done it either.
Right.
The key with a night mode photo is to reduce the highlights to protect those from being blown out. But the key with the shadows is taking as many frames as possible and then computationally stacking those in the way that it reduces noise. And I believe it's up to 32 frames that it will align almost instantly. But the way they do it is that it isn't overly smudged out like over processed photos that we see. So having a little bit of natural grain, I think, in there that Greg had mentioned, for me is great. I mean, it's a night shot. You might want a little bit of grain. That overly smooth processed look to me doesn't really look good. So, yeah, I would say, I think that kind of leads into the next one. For when you look at a regular iPhone photo, again, the more I shoot in RAW, the more I see this heavy-handed global tone mapping that's done to these things. So everything looks really bright. Everything looks really saturated. And the reason they do that is Apple makes the algorithms do that so that the photos look good while you're looking at your phone. And then you take those images and you put them on a bigger screen, and it's not quite as attractive. So, most of the iPhone users are looking at their phone, and that's, they built it around that. So I think, with this app, it avoids the heavy-handed local tone mapping instead of global tone mapping, working with global shadows and global highlights. Local tone mapping is working within specific kind of ranges within the shadows and the highlights. And it doesn't do it so much to where everything just looks fake. It applies a mild tone, saturation, mild sharpening, and it aligns with the Adobe adaptive color profiles, which are really, pretty new to the profiles for Adobe. And it's really, from what I've seen so far, it's really producing very edit-friendly images in either Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw. So I'm really excited to dig in a little bit further on this.
Yeah. Um, it so with all that, it uses all three cameras, and I haven't even tried the front facing camera with it, but I'm sure it must work. But it uses all the cameras, everything from the 0.5 to the 5x on the 15 and 16 Pro Max. But it also has what is it called? Super. I think it's called Super Resolution 2x and Super Resolution 10x, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
The 2x, I can't help but think that to call it Super Resolution 2x, that tells me that the normal 2x in the Apple camera, it just uses a smaller part of the sensor. So this is telling me that it's actually using the whole sensor. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, this is so new to us. But the 10x, the 10 times, it's like doubling the 5 times and giving you a pretty decent DNG file.
Yeah, it can tell whether you're hand holding it and make adjustments, and it can also tell if you have it on a tripod.
Yeah, because I've seen, and I don't know how it comes up. Maybe it's just in certain, maybe my room here is too dark for it to come up, but there's a little icon that comes on the screen that looks like a little phone with a little vibration thing beside it or whatever, and there's a circle around it. And if you're not very steady, the circle goes to about a quarter of the way around and it's yellow. And then once you get a little more steady, then it'll turn white and go to the halfway mark. And then when you're really steady, it goes to the 3/4 mark. And then that's when I've typically become to take the shot. But I haven't had it on a tripod yet to try it. And I would think that would close the circle and to say that you're dead steady. I've got to play around with that some more. But so we're going to look at some pictures here shortly that show basically the range from 0.5 all the way to this 10x. But before we do that, talk about, Dwight, talk a little bit about the integration into Lightroom.
Yeah, so I wanted to say something real quick. The app is free.
Oh yeah,
right now.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I believe it works all the way back to the 12 series phones, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, the 12 Pro, and the non-Pro as far back as the 14, I believe.
Okay, good. Yeah, thanks for that, Greg. Yeah, so integration with within Lightroom, the ecosystem, it's seamless. I mean, you take a photo, you open it up in the Indigo app, and you'll see your Lightroom icon down at the bottom, and you just push that, and then it opens into Lightroom, and you can edit in JPEG or DNG. And from what I understand, if it opens up with HDR editing on, you're gonna be working with the JPEG file, and if that's off, you're gonna be working with the DNG file. And Greg and I were looking at this a little bit. You can still pick your profile that you want to work with in Lightroom. So it's like it goes immediately into Lightroom, and then you pick your profile and then do your editing. So far, the adaptive color has been really good, and I think that the algorithm for this camera app is kind of based on that profile.
Yeah, and the profile selection can be done, like you say, generally it's done in DNG, but it can be done in JPEG as well. And I honestly didn't know that until we tried it just before going on the air tonight. So, yeah. So then with Lightroom, now I've only got Lightroom Mobile. Dwight, have you tried it in Lightroom on the desktop?
I have not.
Okay. I don't know, but I suspect it would probably be a very similar experience.
I'm not sure if opening it in Lightroom on my mobile puts it in my app in my Lightroom catalog. I may still have to import it. So I'm not
okay.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's something, a lot of things to try out yet, a lot of playing around to do. So here's point number 8 on our outline. Multi-frame super resolution enhances zoomed in shots 2 times plus zoom by merging multiple slightly offset frames to reconstruct detail, and not an AI hallucination. So that's interesting. So it's actually, making use of that full 48 megapixel sensor in the case of the main camera to do multiple frames and offset them and then put them together afterwards to make the 2 times zoom shot. So there used to be an app called Hydra that did something similar for making very large resolution photos, but it didn't output in DNG. It was only in maybe a TIFF at best. But other than that, I think it was just JPEG. So that's interesting.
And of course, I have that on my phone.
Hydra? Yeah, I think I do too somewhere. So, and then I think before we start looking at images, we'll talk just kind of quickly about the Pro controls. Like I said earlier, there's the plain UI, but then there's the Pro controls UI, and it gives you manual settings, manual focus, shutter, ISO, exposure compensation, white balance. And one thing I noticed about the white balance, and this is pretty cool, it gives you your usual suspects like daylight, cloudy, fluorescent, tangent, or not tangent. I'm going on a tangent. What's that kind of lighting? Anyway, there's 4 or 5 different presets for white balance, but then it also gives you your temperature scale, the Kelvin temperature scale, and your tint. So it gives you a lot of control over the white balance should you want to use that. Adjustable burst frame count for noise versus capture speed trade-offs. And one more point here, it says includes a long exposure feature, combining multiple long exposures for creative effects like water smoothing, light painting. This is really interesting to me because I love long exposure. I love, waterfall, river, that type of thing. And even light painting is pretty fun to do. So I'll be curious to see how this does with something like ICM. I'm sure it'll do it just fine. And, this is going to be fun to play with. Gosh, anything else on the Pro controls, Dwight, that you want to touch on before we start looking at some of the images?
No, I think Norman, who brought the attention of this app to us, so I think his next comment where he says they're only currently accessing 12 megapixel for Bayer raw DNG.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, but I don't think it's a Bayer raw once they do their processing to it.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's kind of Apple Pro raw-ish.
Mm-hmm. Just not as heavy-handed.
Yeah. The tone mapping is dialed down. Because back earlier when we were talking about the natural look, it applies a mild tone, saturation, and sharpening aligned with Adobe's adaptive color profiles for realistic, edit-friendly images. So, yeah, it's not 100% Bayer raw. And I could tell by looking at them that they're not,
But the nice thing is that the processing's been done with it, and it's still a raw file, which is rare. I mean, I don't know of any other app that can do that.
Yeah, that's right. And Norman says they're not yet using 48 megapixel Pro RAW. Not in this app, I don't believe. No. I think everything that I've seen has come out 12 megapixel. So it'll be interesting to see if they ever do utilize that 48 megapixel
Yeah,
there is
and the next iPhone is supposed to have a 24 megapixel front facing camera. So who knows? We'll see. We'll see in September. But I think there's a couple other things that are worth mentioning here. Greg, they're aiming for WYSIWYG, which means what you see is what you get, which is rendering in the viewfinder, to make it look like what the photo is going to look like after you capture it. And then enabling live previews of the final image look during capture, which is good. And then this is also, a research project as well, because they want to integrate features, and they have it now actually in their reflection removal. I played with that a little bit. I didn't have real big success with that yet. They want to bring portrait mode. They want to bring panorama. They want to bring video, exposure, and focus bracketing, and other multi-frame capabilities. So this is going to grow, I think, and I think you've got the Adobe team behind this thing, so they seem like they're pretty serious.
Yeah, and it almost sounds like they plan on Sherlocking a bunch of other apps.
Yeah.
And Norman says it's on their plan to computationally create a 48 megapixel Bayer raw frame and not a single image. Norman, is that something that you heard? Is that or is that, did we miss that in the article? Because we're going by like a brief outline that I had put together through ChatGPT. Because it was such a long, intensive article, but this is interesting. Norman has spoken with them, or he's had dialogue with them, so that's cool.
Yeah, I guess what does 48 megapixel Bayer raw frame mean?
Yeah, because frame he's got in quotes, right?
Yeah. Anyway, he can. Thanks for doing that, Norman. Reaching out to them, I think that's great.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be keeping in touch with you on anything else that you might hear, and if a lot of stuff comes out between now and the next podcast, maybe we can find a way to have you on to talk a little bit about this and maybe see what you know. If there's something significantly different than what we're covering tonight.
And we can have him talk about his street photography.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at some pictures that Dwight and I have taken. Now, the first series is going to be Dwight's, and they are starting at the 0.5 camera and working your way in closer. So I'll let you walk through these and just talk about what you did.
Yeah, so this is trails. This is beach access adjacent to Camp Pendleton. Our U.S. Marines are very generous to give us access to these beaches. This is Trail 1, and that is the nuclear power plant that's been decommissioned way off in the future there. You see that little bubble way out in the future.
Yeah.
And just beyond that is my favorite surf spot anywhere. Off to the left here, Trail 1, that's White Shark pupping grounds, and I won't go into details, but I've felt.
But this is a typical nice wide angle 0.5 times camera shot, and these are unedited, correct?
These are unedited. I haven't cropped, I haven't straightened, I haven't done anything. My goal here is just to see, the capabilities of this thing. Now, I will say that I didn't take so one of the options on there, as Greg mentioned earlier, is 10 times, right?
Yeah.
I didn't take a 10 times. I took a 10 times with the reflex 240 millimeter telephoto on it to really suck this thing in and see what it looked like. So anyway, we'll walk through it.
Yeah, because actually I did that today. I did take a 10 times without the lens. Actually, I took one without and one with, so we can further illustrate that. But anyway, so this is the 0.5x. This is the ultra wide, and I mean, it looks good. It looks great. Coloring looks good. It's a darn good start to the edit. But folks watching live on YouTube and looking at the images on your phone as we go, look in the center of the frame and you'll see what Dwight was talking about by this. There's a dome there.
Yeah, that
And as
point
we go
right at the top of the cliff there, before it starts dropping down, is a little dome behind it.
Yeah,
which is the nuclear reactor.
Yeah. So now we go to the 1X, and you can see it a little more clearly.
Yeah. So this is, as Greg mentioned, this is the 1X, just out of camera.
Yeah, and
there's two reactors there, so there isn't shake. You can kind of see one behind it out there.
Yeah. And I'll to be honest with you, I never noticed that before, but yeah, there is. But I mean, this is, again, a nice, good color image, great way to start on an edit. But you know what? Really, even you don't even have to edit it. You can just share it out just the way it is because it looks pretty good.
And I should mention that this is not on a tripod. There was a railing that I was resting my phone on.
Okay. Yeah. And you were resting it in the same spot for all the images, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that's just about as good as using a tripod, at least, to indicate that the camera didn't move. It's just going closer and closer.
It was still really tough when I got to the reflex.
Oh,
lens.
yeah.
But
yeah. So now we have the 2x super resolution. I believe that's what this will be.
Yeah, is this the 5, or does it say 2 times? Let me see. Let's see. That's correct, Greg. Yes, that's the 2 times. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's the 1 times. I won't put these in the podcast player like that, but I mean, there's the 1 times, and then you look at the 2 times, and it's basically double the size. Like I'm looking at the dome, right? The dome looks basically twice as big as it did in the 1 times. And
that's crazy.
Yeah. And this is a 12 megapixel file. In fact, I believe they all are. And again, color, the tones and contrast and all that stuff is not terrible. It's not bad. You could work with this quite easily. And yeah, it's crazy. So then we go to the this is the 5 times.
This is the 5 times. Yep. That looks pretty good, Greg.
It does. There's a fair bit of detail in it. It doesn't look as overprocessed as like an Apple Pro RAW file, in my opinion. Yeah, it looks pretty good. You can see detail in the fence down around that building down there. There's ladders, like ladder type things that people can walk up on the dome there. The detail in the cliff face looks really good.
Yeah, it doesn't look painted, right? There's a little bit of texture there still.
Yep. And and that'll be that texture they were talking about in the article. And then you get into this is the 5 times with the 240 on it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Greg, on the left side there, you see that wall, the black wall, the light portion? If you put me right there and you take a picture back towards these cliffs, that's my profile picture.
Oh, really?
So I turned it into black and white, made it look like I was standing on Mars, so those cliffs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
But so this is with the reflex lens on it.
Yeah, and it's really compressed. Like it really compresses the image. Everything that's way back gets pulled in. And oh man, it's really cool.
Just wait until you see the next one with the reflex lens.
So it's just,
and I couldn't, it should be to the right a little bit more, but I just wanted. I mean, you can kind of see that wall in the other one, but I just wanted to show you how tight this is pulling in. That's a surf contest up in the top there on the upper left. That's the famous lower trestles.
Oh yeah.
Kelly Slater was there this week. a very good wave. But anyway, yeah, we're in real tight, and you can see the cars at San Onofre State Beach. The upper in the by the palm trees there, kind of in the middle top.
Yeah.
Very famous surf beach, and you can actually see somebody on a wave.
Yeah.
In the upper left, you see them going left up there. You can see a little speck, which is crazy.
So, how far away would that be from where you were standing?
So it's about a 45-minute walk over all those rocks and everything to kind of get there. So, probably 2 miles.
You're kidding.
No.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
So something that, I kind of pondered once I started, like when I put this app in my phone and started playing around with it, is some people might say, well, what's the point in buying a reflex lens? Well, this is precisely why you might want to get that lens, because it gets you this close to your subject. Like, think of what it would do for wildlife. And I'm not, I like the company Reflex. I love their products. I use them. And I'm not just saying this because of that. I'm saying this because it's from a phone, and I think this probably beats, if not matches, like something you'd get from like the 100 times or 200 times or whatever it is that the Samsung phones can do. I mean, I don't know, but I haven't seen side-by-side comparisons, but this is pretty darn good. And this is unedited. So can you imagine if you ran this through your editing process where you can, deal with, light and shadow and
Yeah, it's a pretty
sharpness
flat
and all
image,
that
right?
stuff?
Yeah, it needs contrast and
Yeah. And okay, now somebody looking at this might say, well, it looks a little blotchy. Well, I'm pretty sure that's heat waves I'm seeing along the roof edge of that building, probably because it was hot. Like it looks a little.
Yeah, or it could be just a slight bit of movement. I don't know. It was really tough keeping that thing steady,
Yeah.
even because you had, I had the Z axis, putting
Yeah.
the camera on the railing, but I still had the tilt. That was still tough to hold. So
Yeah.
maybe next weekend I'll try with a tripod. I don't know if they have a delayed shutter. That would be nice to.
Oh, like a timer?
Yeah, to eliminate shake from pushing the button, or maybe there's a complication or something like that. I'll have to look at that for the Apple Watch.
Yeah, I don't see a self timer on it, but that's okay.
That could be something down the.
Yeah, something down the road. They might add. I'm sure they would.
Yeah, Norm and I run from that DA slider. I can't stand that thing. We can get contrast better with curves, I think.
Cool.
On shift cam. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I did yesterday. And I did fail to take a 10x one without the reflex lens. So I think, Greg, you've got one of those, as kind of an example.
Yeah. So what I did today was we took the dogs for a walk at the local cemetery, just because it's nice and quiet, no traffic, no other dogs. Our little Australian silky terrier just goes berserk when she sees other dogs. So we tend to go up here where it's nice and quiet. And I was at this one part of the cemetery where this is with the 5 times with no lens on it. And, you could see that building in the distance there. That was kind of my prime focus of these images. And then I just went to the 10 times with no lens, and pretty clean shot. These are handheld. I didn't use anything to brace my arms or anything else. Basically just kind of held my breath or exhaled very slowly to get these. And then I put the lens on, And this is the 5X with the reflex lens. Now,
It almost looks a little sharper.
It's slightly, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's slightly different than almost like a slightly different focal range or focal length than the 10X, because typically this is like a 5X time. The reflex lens doubles the focal length. Basically, it's almost like a 2 times lens, but it's for the 5 times camera. So this is basically like a 10 times image, but it's, with the physics and the optics and everything else, it's slightly different.
How far back are you, Greg? Are you about 100 yards, or I don't know.
I would have been.
You're probably going to give me a meters.
You know what? I'm old school when it comes to that. I tend to kind of talk yards when I talk, distance, like in this case. So I'm trying to think. That would have been probably at least 200 yards.
Wow. And then, you could run that out into, Topaz or something like that, and it'll look like you were standing right there and took that picture.
Well, this is the next one here is going to be the 10 times super resolution with the reflex lens.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And
that's pretty incredible.
I was really pleased with the clarity.
And you're not, so you were holding your breath, and did you have your elbows kind of on your chest, or was your arm extended?
No, I always tuck my elbows right into tight to my chest.
Yeah, that's incredible. So one of the things in the article, Greg, was one of the limitations of a smartphone is you need a long lens for wildlife photography.
Yep. I
think we've solved maybe part of that. I don't know enough about traditional cameras and long lenses and how far it can pull in and this and that. But I think
this is so the reflex lens, it's a 240 millimeter lens when it's put on the 5X camera. So basically, with the super resolution 10 times in this camera app, and with the lens on it, you're kind of looking at a focal length of about 480 millimeters.
Okay, how does that compare to a long lens?
Well, long lenses are, they vary. A good Canon lens goes like, they've got a 100 to 400, and of course they've got longer focal lengths and things like that.
Sure.
But a 480 is probably like, I've seen like Panasonic Lumix cameras where it would go from 35 to 480.
So we're right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy. So I mean, I'm really anxious now to get out and take pictures of something with this configuration to, and then get it into an editing app, like whether it's Lightroom Mobile or Luminar Neo, just to see what I can get out of it. Tomorrow, I believe, is supposed to be an overcast day, which I think is going to be a little better scenario for shooting for me anyway. I'm just not a fan of shooting in harsh sunlight unless it's golden hour. But it's going to be interesting to see how this works out tomorrow. So, so those are the images.
Wait to see those. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good illustration of what this app is capable of, but also if you pair it with the reflex 240 millimeter super telephoto lens, it's a good time to be a mobile photographer.
What if you put a macro clip on there?
You know what? I noticed that there is a macro feature in that camera app.
Really?
Yes, because if you go to the 5X, let me see now. Okay. It's pretty dim in my room here. Unless it was with the 5X. I saw the macro logo thing come up, and it said, turn on macro mode. I can't do it in here because everything's too confined in my office here. But I did see that kind of come on the display. I think it was in the lower left-hand corner where it would actually, maybe it was in the 2 times. It will actually, almost look like there it is. Okay.
There
So
it is in 2 times. Yeah.
in the
Step
2
back.
times, so you hit the,
Yep. There it is.
yeah.
So it has macro mode in 2 times so far.
Yeah, I think it's only going to be in 2 times because it's going to zoom with the bigger sensor.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll work in anything
I
beyond
wonder if
that.
you just leave macro off and throw one of those reflex macro clips on there. What would happen?
Yeah, it'd probably work. Because it also on the little macro icon, it has a UW, so it's going to use the ultra wide.
Sure.
Which is basically macro mode from the iPhone camera or like the Apple camera. So that's interesting. They've been able to tap into that. So they're not only tapped into night mode, but they've also tapped into macro mode on the iPhone, which has always been strictly an Apple camera thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Norm says, thanks for doing the 480 equivalent shots because that's answered a key question for me. Yeah, with your street photography, Norm, that will be very helpful, I would imagine. Yeah. So that is Project Indigo, and that's what all the hype is going to be about, because I haven't seen anyone else talk about this yet. Yeah, Norman says they haven't got portrait depth info yet, but it's coming. Yeah,
that's on their roadmap.
Yeah. So
portrait mode, personalized looks, computational video, and support for exposure / focus bracketing.
Yeah. So I'm sure other outlets, media outlets will be talking about this camera app as time goes on here. But as far as I know, other than the Adobe research blog or whatever it's called, I think we're the first. I don't know. There may be tons of others. There could be other ones out there, but I think we're the first, and we'll go with that.
We'll go with that, and I definitely need more practice.
Well, I got to play around with it some more too, and get to know with it, the features and how they work and all that stuff. So, and
we talked about a slump last time, and I think this got us out of a slump.
This is a great way to get out of a slump: is get a new camera app and to start playing.
Yeah.
Norman says it's a great time to be invited by Adobe to participate in this test bed. But wouldn't that be cool? That'd be a very interesting. Maybe
good job, Adobe, if you're listening or watching. I tagged you in my Instagram, so hopefully you catch up on this. And maybe we can even
here's a
have
couple of guys. Glenn Dewis has tested it, and so has Brian and Matthias. Okay, so I guess we're not first.
I figures those guys would get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Brian works for Adobe, and Glenn is he's an amazing photographer and has a fantastic YouTube channel.
Both have very good channels.
Yeah, we've had Brian on before. I'd love to have Glenn on sometime, so I'm going to have to reach out to him, and maybe in a little bit we can have him on, maybe to talk a bit more about this app and whatnot.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Dive right into it. Yeah. So, all right. So that is. Wait, before we carry on, I want to see this one here from Paul Mashak. Hope I'm saying that right. Have you noticed the instant heating generated by the iPhone could be just slower processing? An iPhone 13 can't handle this app. If it's just an iPhone 13, it's not. It's rated for 14 and up for just the plain iPhone, and 12 Pro and up for the Pro phones. So if your 13 is not a Pro, then it's probably not really recommended. In fact, it says here, availability and roadmap, free on iOS, iPhone 12 Pro and non-Pro 14
Okay.
and
So you
newer.
have to, yeah. So hopefully you have a 13 Pro there, Paul. And
Yeah.
I haven't used it enough to see how much it heats up my phone yet.
Yeah. Yeah, me neither. Norman says it does not run hot at the moment. Heat dissipation is best on 16. Yeah, because the 16 is a monster with the processing, so that sure helps. And it's worth noting that there is an Android version in the
Yes.
future as well. So
Yeah.
and that's to be expected because Lightroom Mobile's on Android as well, and so why not have this app available to that side too? All right, well that's Project Indigo. Really cool. Really anxious to see what the future brings with that. And Norm says he gets a heat warning on his 15 Pro Max. Is that's while using the app? Is it, Norman? Because admittedly, I was getting a heat warning on my, which phone was it? Oh, that's another thing. I put the beta on my 16 Pro Max. Yeah, that's okay. That's when he's using the app on the 15 Pro Max. So, yeah. So before we go to our recent photos, this was not planned, Dwight, but it just came to my mind. It's been such a busy day for me. My mind's been kind of mush. But I wanted to give a little bit of an update as to how the beta is going for iOS 26. And as when we recorded last week, I had just put it on my phone like a couple of hours or so before we went on the air. So there wasn't really a lot of time for things to happen. And I said, it's pretty good. And it still is pretty good. But I've had a few instances where, I might do something and an app might freeze. Oh, Shane's in the house. He was pointing out that I said, it's not that bad. And that's what I did say. And I'll maintain that. It's not that bad, but it's still early days. It's a beta. So, since then, I've had a couple of things happen. Like sometimes an app might freeze, so I have to force close it and open it up again. I don't recall what the apps are. I think it happened in Photos, to be honest with you. Another couple of times I've seen the screen just go black and the little timing little wheel would go for a bit, and then it would just go to the lock screen. So I think that might be like a springboard thing. I'm not sure. And then you just open it up and away you go again. Vero is the only app that I've had so far that doesn't work at all. If I open Vero, it's just a black screen. And that's the same on both phones. So it's not, not a phone thing. It's definitely Vero needs to update their app to be compatible with iOS 26. What else? I think I've probably found some cool features over the last week. Some that I just can't think of offhand, but we're just going to keep updating everybody on things that I find and whatnot. If any of the listeners are on the beta, definitely go to the Facebook group and tell us what your experiences are like and whatnot. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I almost took it off my 16 yesterday because I thought, gosh, if something goes on with it that and I really need it. It was nothing that I couldn't do on my Mac. So I'm not updating my Mac. My Mac's going to stay on the latest public release of Mac OS 15 or whatever. I'm not putting Mac OS 26 on this thing until the first point release, just to make sure everything's running smooth. I think it'll be fine, but I'm just not taking any chances after what happened to it there a month or so ago, where I had to take it in, and I just wanted to reformat it and start fresh and put everything on external drives and all that stuff. So I didn't lose any data, but I just wanted to refresh and like freshen up the computer to make it perform better. And there was something, because I ran a beta on it earlier, something in that beta software screwed it up. And the guys at the local Apple repair shop, the authorized Apple repair shop, it's not an Apple store, but they're pretty sharp, so they got it going. But anyway, so again, I'll keep figuring out what's coming out with this iOS 26, and if it's something really cool, I'll definitely update everybody. One thing that comes to mind real quick though is that that parallax look, that 3D type of look. I did that on a photo that my niece sent me, taken from an Android phone. And so it's definitely not an iPhone camera thing. It's definitely not, like, it'll definitely be certain phones that can do it. My 15 and 16 Pro Max can both do it. I would think probably the 14 Pro Max could do it. And then I think beyond that, I'm not sure. But that little button came up in the view, in the viewfinder or whatever, when I was looking at the photo, and I could turn on that spatial scene on a picture taken on an Android phone that was sent through a text message and everything else, and it worked fine. And it was even smart enough. It was a picture of her standing on the lawn, and it was smart enough to keep her feet planted on the grass, like, and everything else kind of moved proportionately. It was so cool. But again, what's it going to be used for? Wallpaper. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, my opinion on the whole iOS 26 is looks like a coat of paint to me. I could care less, to be honest with you. I'm more interested in how it relates to photography. I'm trying to figure out ways to spend less time on my phone than have something to have me want to be on it more. So I'm a little skeptical right now. So I'm going to wait till the fall. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, aside from the glassy look and all that stuff, there are some things in it, like, the way you could, pull up a menu and do stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of different ways that I think it makes the user experience maybe a little better. Like, you can pull down Control Center and you can create a new reminder with one of those little icons in Control Center, just little stupid little things like that. But it all depends on what you like and what you want to do. And, and Shane's right with you, Dwight, 110% on the fact that it's, he says here, it's just that bit of stupid marketing stuff, really. It's not beneficial to photographers.
Yeah, that's what I care about.
Yeah. And again, the 90-90 rule, right? They try to please 90% of the people 90% of the time, and we are that 10%.
As it relates to photography.
Yeah. And maybe even as it relates to how we use the phone. There's a lot of us, maybe, I don't want to say old, but older people that don't really care about that gimmicky stuff, like that parallax thing. That's very, very, very low on my priority list for iOS 26. Like, it's like there was another feature that came out not too long ago that I really could care less about. I forget what it is, but anyway, but I don't know. Yeah, so that's a little update for iOS 26, and even more reasons why you should not put it on your daily phone, because it's not for anybody who's if you're not willing to nuke and pave your phone, you shouldn't be using beta software. That's about all I could say about that. So, all right. So now we're going to go on to our recent photos, and because Dave is not with us today, we're going to do 3 pictures each, and we'll try to go through them kind of quickly here because we've already been an hour, and I want to try to keep this time of these shows down. So, but I think they're all pretty cool. And we're going to start with this first one from you, Dwight.
Yeah, that's a macro shot with the reflex, and I believe it's a 300 millimeter macro clip on. That's a sage plant. Yeah, still having fun. We talked about a slump last week. There's a lot of flowers still, and I think I actually shot this in Pro Raw at 12 megapixels. Kind of experimenting in that realm right now. So yeah, just a macro shot that I took last week.
Yeah, and it's hard to get a really bad composition with a macro, I think. I think the way you've kind of basically kept the bulk of this thing central and then let the purple stuff kind of, be where it lies. It makes for an interesting composition, especially when you got the stuff in the foreground that's really blurred. And then, excuse me, then you've got the main part of was this on a cactus or?
Yeah. Well, no, it's on a sage brush.
Oh, okay.
Kind of thing, yeah.
So I'm assuming that all those things are going to blossom into purple, are they? Or
I think so, yeah.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah, it's really pretty flower.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's I'm finding Pro Raw kind of does a little better at giving you a sharper image, I think, at times, not all the time, but there's certain cases. And I have one to talk about in these pictures here.
Yeah, I always tone down the mount slider on that and then just build it up the way I want to build it up.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Pro Raw is still a good place to start with the edit too, because like I say, you could tone things down and then build up.
Right.
But yeah, no, I like the colors of it, and it's very interesting. I mean, I also like the way you've got things focused. Oh, look at who's here, Mr. Podner. Dave, you're welcome to chime in if you want. You've got the link, so if you wanna come in and talk about these pictures with us, you're welcome to do so. But yeah, no, another good shot. Can't go wrong with macro, in my opinion. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So this one here, I have this thing where if we go to a restaurant and there's like an empty booth or an empty table or there's no sign of anybody around, I always like to get a picture of it. I don't know why. Like I've shown pictures before of restaurant interiors, and this was at a local Kelsey's, and we went for wings the other day, and I don't know, it just kind of caught my eye, and I believe this was just a bare raw image, or it may have been Pro Raw, because one of the things that I might as well give another quick little update with the beta. But one of the things that Bayer raw photos do is they come in at a little larger resolution on the long side than the camera is capable of. It's like it adds a black bar that's 200 pixels wide. And maybe on the next episode, I'll show an example of that. But this image didn't have that. So this could have been a Pro Raw, but anyway, no, I just like taking interior shots at restaurants, and especially if it's a nice decor and it just catches my eye. And that's pretty much all this is.
Yeah, I mean, that is a thing, right? It's interesting that you like the empty booths and stuff like that. I kind of see this as something that I would probably make into black and white and make it a real contrasty image. You can kind of see there's some dynamic range here, right? You got deep shadows all the way to some pretty bright highlights. But yeah, I mean, just an interesting viewpoint.
Yeah.
That what do you call that? That divider looks like it's reflecting something to the left of the screen that might be out the window that way. So you've got another tree out another window or something.
There would be a window right in that booth there, and the light was shining through the trees and hitting that. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and one thing that caught my eye with this compositionally was you've got the light in the top right corner, just basically part of it, and then part of the table in the bottom left-hand corner. I think they kind of complement each other.
Yeah, I think Norman's got a nice idea. You should develop a personal project for booths.
Yeah, you know what? I thought of that.
Yeah.
I have thought of that. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Desi Podner.
An empty booth can tell a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave, are you recording your audio? You just go ahead and start recording, and I'll pretty much figure out where to put it in. So, so that's Norm says, and then a book. Again, that crossed my mind too. Just a little ebook of restaurant interiors or something like that. Something with a theme. It could be quite easy to throw a little ebook together and put it in the Apple bookstore. So, good idea.
I know that there is a Mexican restaurant near us that has enameled booths in them. But,
oh, really?
But very colorful and very expressive, kind of like, I don't want to call it exactly murals, but they give you a lot of detail, and it isn't just the plain, seat.
Oh, yeah. Huh. Well, what did Shane say here? I seen the comic about that would have made a good abstract image with that bench seat and the lighting on the studs buttons close up, showing depth towards window. So basically, just like zoom in on it a bit. I think is that what you mean, Shane? But while he's pondering that, we'll go to the next one here. Now this is another one for Dwight.
Yeah. So I think I took this with the Moment telephoto lens. I think. Yeah. So another hollyhock at the Mission, and that's the ruins of the chapel in the background.
Oh yeah.
Just I put you can see the before photo in. I believe you'll probably put that in the podcast group on Facebook. I think Greg.
Yeah, it'll be on the Facebook page, in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, what I did on this one was I built up the contrast. I burned some of the highlights in the rocks there because they were kind of attracting attention too much. I took down some of the saturation and lightness of the green in the lower left. I wanted the viewer's eye to be on the flower, and then did kind of a vignette off to the right, just to kind of draw the eye into that column of flowers there. Just a basic shot. I played with this a few times. I tried to get it, try to square. I played with sky replacement, but this was handheld, and I was getting ghosting around the edges of the chapel and stuff like that. So I just left it the way it is. Nothing's blown out here, but yeah, just a simple photo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, you can't go wrong with macro. Compositionally, I think it's good. You get the flower; it's almost like a person facing into the frame. So
yeah, I think this was a telephoto lens. This wasn't. This wasn't macro.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, you did say that. Yeah. If it was macro, you wouldn't even be able to make out the background. Yeah.
But I'm really relatively new to photography. I dig the depth of field.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Any thoughts, Dave?
No, I mean, like I said, the pop of color is just so great on here, and like I said, the detail there. Now, I'll say this: I just switched my camera so I can use my phone to put a photo in the shared group.
Okay.
So I'm looking at it on my screen, so it's a little different from me normally looking at it up close with the camera here. Also, bifocals make a difference, but no, I mean, I the fact that, like you said, I think you guys mentioned, it's like you have the part in the back there, kind of just to the left of center. You have the flower to the right, so it balances out that way. You have the color differences there. You have kind of three. You have the green on the bottom left. You have the pink, whatever color of pink that is, and you have your brown earth tones there in kind of three different sectors of the image.
Right.
So that makes a nice touch too.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. I really do like the color of the flower. It's pretty cool. That kind of is reminiscent of my flower.
Is that a rose?
You know what? I call this one pre-carnation. It's a carnation that's just starting to open up, and it's eventually going to be nice and wide open. There were some on this plant that were wide open, but I this one caught my eye because just the way the sun was hitting it, and it wasn't open yet. It kind of looked like a rose, but it's a carnation.
What'd you shoot that with, Greg?
Now this was with the 240 and the 300 millimeter attachment.
That's a great lens. That combo is amazing.
It is. I like the 300 better than the 200.
I do too.
Yeah. So, and then, of course, Luminar Neo I did the edit in Luminar Neo, and my usual suspects where I use the Mystic thing and no, is it Mystic? I use it all the time. I should know the name of it. I think it's Mystic. But
another thing you can do in Neo is in the upper left-hand corner, you can put a light source in there and just make it very, very, low opacity. It can kind of show that. I can show you how to do that. It's really kind of cool, but it's pretty self-explanatory. But no, this is a great. I just like how it emerges out of the shadows, and it has depth because you have the one leaf coming towards you. I'm all about that, right? Foreground, middle ground, and background, and you've captured it here, and the colors are they're great. I love it.
Yeah. I tried playing with in Luminar Neo, I've got the Luminar default profile, and then the only other one I have so far is the Adobe standard profile for raw files, and I tried to play with the Adobe standard, but it just didn't have enough kick to it for my liking as a starting point. So I always go back to the Luminar default, and I'd like to know how to get more profiles. I don't know.
You can load camera-specific profiles in Neo.
Yeah,
maybe offline you and I can play around with that. I can show you some of that stuff.
Yeah, because I'm not sure where to even get them.
And Greg, you're talking for the desktop, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't think the mobile app has the profiles and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
It's very limited with what it could do.
Yeah, they don't have profiles yet. Yeah, that mobile app needs some work.
Yeah, sure does. Yeah. So next we have this cool thing.
Yeah, so this is another. That's 240 with the 300, Greg. And this is the mimosa tree in our front yard. It's blooming right now. And I'm sure I cleaned it up in Photoshop. I think there were some distractions around there. Just some contrast adjustments. I tried to keep it soft. I might have brought the brightness down of that, the other flower in the lower left, just to kind of, keep the attention on the main subject there. But I just kind of like the way the things kind of flowed out, dreamy. I focused on the front of it. You can kind of tell the front of the flower. So everything just kind of falls off from there.
Yeah. It looks like a flower that's having a bad hair day.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all over my tree right now.
Yeah. That's cool. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of if you've ever seen like a fiber optic tree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of. Just because you have the different colors just on the tips.
Yeah.
And
that's
like you
neat.
said,
I never thought, I kind of, fiber optic was kind of in the back of my mind trying to come out, but I couldn't get there with it. And then as soon as you said that, I thought, yes, exactly. That's exactly what it looks like.
That or fireworks.
Oh, yeah.
Because the way, if you ever see the type of fireworks that are, that you can see the trace on, then it explodes on the outside. it looks very similar to that. And
Mm-hmm.
just also, like you said, the way that the focus fades as you go back. So it's the whole thing isn't in focus, and it shouldn't be in focus, especially when you're this close. You know,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say should. I shouldn't say should, but it may look weird, or it may not look as good if everything was in focus.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay, well, we'll go to my last one, and then we're going to look at one of Dave's, and he just put it in at the last second here, so that's good. So we'll just get to this one here, and of course, macro with the 240 and the 300 millimeter add-on. It's a bold jumper. They're called a jumping spider, and this little guy was about 3/8 of an inch long, and he was just kind of meandering around this clematis plant that we have in our growing up against the back wall of the house. And so I've got a bunch of pictures of it, and some of the angles may have been better than this, but I think this was one of the ones where the eyes were a little better as far as sharpness goes. And this, I mentioned earlier, talking about a Pro Raw, where it kind of does a little better job at sharpening. I think this one was a little sharper, especially for the little hairs on his legs and all that stuff, than some of the Bayer raw files were. And it's because he's pretty small and trying to, I had the focus peaking on, trying to get the eyes in focus, and I think this was one of the better ones that I had for that. Now, compositionally, not the greatest because of the background behind him was fairly dark, so I had to really bring up the shadows. And this is also cropped probably about 40%. So there was a lot more in the frame, but to see the spider better, I had to definitely crop it and make it put up with a smaller file. But I'm not printing it big or anything, so that's my little bold jumping spider.
They are, and honestly, I've seen people online, like on TikToks, who have these little spiders, and they just look so, for lack of a better term, neat.
Oh, yeah.
They're just different, and especially since, in this detail, you can see the eyes right in front and how the eyes pop because they're that greenish color going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually the person, it's a little bit more comedy as they have the spider talking.
Oh, really?
But the way they have it talk, it's normal movements, as it's going around and moving in its enclosure.
Yeah,
They just look so different from, a spider that, the average spider you would see in your house.
Yeah.
Or the average spider that's trying to kill Shane in Australia.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Yeah, if I saw that on a spider web while I was mowing the lawn and I walked right into it, I would be practicing karate again.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So I think that this would be really fun to work with, Greg. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna square crop it, and I'm gonna zoom way in, and I'm gonna upscale it.
Well, I'll put the raw file or the Pro Raw file, I guess, in our folder.
Their editing folder. Yeah,
where you can play around with it.
Yeah, when I first looked at it, my attention kept going to the gray on the left, and then when I started looking at the spider, it's got that same tone in it, so it does pull you into it, and I think that helps. But I think that would look really cool if we can get in even closer. I think we can.
That
I'm gonna try that.
That gray that you see on the left is actually one of the light purple clematis flowers, and I think because it was such a bright sunny day, the color was bouncing off the flowers onto the black spider, tinting it.
Yeah,
and I toned down the purplish color on the spider a little bit, because I wanted to make it a little more
I guess
black,
that is
like
purple.
Yeah. And so that's why he's got that, he, she, it, whatever it is. That's why it's got that color tone to it, and it's just reflecting off the flowers, which I thought
It's an
that was kind of interesting.
interesting head. It looks like a robot head or something.
Yeah.
I don't think he or she and I would get along too well.
No, and it freaked me out because I was honing in on it with the lens, and then it jumped, and I didn't know where it jumped. But luckily, it just jumped from one leaf to another.
Not down your collar.
No. So that's my my last one. So now I'll switch over to another window here, and we'll bring Dave's up. And this is Dave's image, and I think I know what you did, how you got this one, but go ahead, Dave.
Sure. Well, actually, this was more of a crop more than anything else. So we were just going between two places, and the director just happened to send us down in the Braddock, which is a suburb around here, and out in front of one of the few remaining operating steel mills in the area. So this is the Mon Valley Works, the Edgar Thompson plant, and this is pretty much this is a statue outside the main entrance they have. One thing I did do, there were telephone lines in front. That's why the top of the bar looks a little weird. I tried to erase basically a solid line going across, and it did pretty good. I figured it looked better without it, even if it had a little weirdness on top. But other than that, this is a rather large statue. This is 10,
I was going to ask you
tall.
how big, what is it, 12 feet you said?
Yeah, I think it's like 10, 12 feet tall.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually have the unedited one also in the same folder.
Okay.
And you can see the entire plant next to it. I mean, the opening for the plant next to it. And this is bigger than life size. This is massive they have out in front.
What'd you shoot that with, Dave?
This was just with the regular built-in camera app.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Just the 1X?
Yeah, just the 1X, and then just cropping in editing.
Yeah.
Because at first I wanted to have the picture there and the gate and the factory, kind of the mill in the background. And when I was showing her, she's like, I really just want the image. I want, the image of the statue is what really got to me. So I said, okay. By that time, it was too late to go back and do anything. So it was and honestly, for a crop, it turned out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Did you shoot in? Is this a hive?
Yeah, that's a hive. Yeah, it's a live image. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I was testing out the Indigo app at the same time.
See, that's where I thought you took this with,
from far away. Yeah. That's what I originally thought.
No, this is up close, but this was taken from the same location, and I don't know if Reggie showed the roller coaster picture earlier or not.
Oh, no, I didn't. I forgot to put that in.
This was taken.
I'll see if I can find it
from the same spot that I took the roller coaster photo, and the roller coaster photo is across the river up the hill where Kennywood is, the amusement park. So, it's kind of neat that when you're in the amusement park on a lot of the coasters, you can look over and see a steel mill right across the river. And they've both been around the same amount of time, well over 100 years. But this just kind of, as we're driving by and we're trying to make sure, we're unfamiliar. So we're watching the map and say, turn here. The road's really narrow and windy. And all of a sudden you see the opening and then you see the statue. You're like, I have to find somewhere to pull over and take a picture of that.
Yeah. I'm trying to find that.
I thought I put that.
Oh, I think it might be in our iMessage chat.
You are correct. Yes.
Yeah, well, that artifact a little bit that you got on the top from removing the lines almost gives it action, like he's in the process.
It looks like
of
it's twisted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one actually, because I tried to use the built-in correction tool, and then I tried to use touch retouch. So the touch retouch tends to do better with like lines. And then I did the clone stamp, trying to recreate the arc parts on top for touch retouch. So when I erased it kind of just erased the whole thing. So it was a little bit of like zoom in and try to touch up as best I could.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to bring up that roller coaster shot because I thought it was pretty good.
No, that was on the new app, right?
Yeah, that was on Indigo.
Yeah.
That was on Indigo, and that's a decent amount because, well, like I said, I was literally in the same spot that I took that air photo. So that's across the river, up the hill. So that's a couple miles away.
Now, this was with the 10 times?
That was actually, I'm trying to remember, it was 25 times because
Oh, so you zoomed in on.
Yeah. Yeah. I went up to
okay.
10 and then I manually zoomed in even more. So I think that may be 25 times.
Okay,
And
so let's
that's pretty
zoom
darn
in
good
here.
for manual zoom.
Yeah.
So if you're watching on YouTube, I just zoomed in on, part of Dave's picture here, and boy, oh boy, the detail's still not that bad.
Mm-mm.
You know, for now that article talks about the zooming stuff, and I don't think we covered it, but I'm going to go back and read up on it.
Yeah.
But this is pretty darn good.
Yeah. The fact that you can see the joints that are here, it's not now the yellow part isn't blurry. The actual track, which is kind of behind it at the steep angle, that's a little blurry. But the fact that you can see, like I said, you see the telephone lines, which are very close.
Yeah.
Kind of blocking in front, and the trees are a little washed out, but it was a little hazy that day.
Yeah.
This is also a coaster I would not get on per se. Because if you notice, you have the hill climb going up from left to right, and then you just go down a little bit, and then you do an inversion 190 feet up in the air.
Oh, yeah.
To start.
Oh, yeah.
And it has like
No, thanks.
9 inversions. And yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm getting too old for that stuff now. Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Nice.
I'm glad you're reminding me to put this up here, Dave, because I said the other day that I was going to show it, and then it escaped me. But yeah, that's a great illustration of what that app is capable of. So,
and I did try to print this one out.
Oh yeah,
on my home printer, and it was clear. I know it's a 4x6 inch print, so it's a smaller print. Yeah. The bigger problem, I think, was the printer having issues with the green. But I think that's a printer issue than a photo issue.
Yeah.
Because I also printed out the other photo I did for the recent photos. And that was taken with the built-in camera app, the other one. And that turned out crystal clear on the print. So I think it was just a matter of, you can see the green's a little weird here. You know, it's a little
kind of bluish green. Again, that could be the haze,
Haze and the zoom,
and it's
maybe causing
further,
some
a lot further away.
Most definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah. So, well, I'm glad you were able to pop on for a little bit here, Dave. Because I forgot about the.
Oh, sure, Greg.
Go ahead.
I did want to show the other photo I put into the group, to the shared photos also. Should be another
of the entrance, like.
Well, no, there should be one with it looks like a fern. There we go. Yeah, so this was actually, I took it, this is in my backyard. Took it basically during mowing the grass. And it was later in the afternoon, so the sun was a little low. I just liked the silhouette that was there. And I used this was done by Photographic Styles. So I'm trying to remember which Dramatic I want to say. Dramatic tends to make the sky that tealish, bluish look to it. I like the look. It's not obviously realistic, but I do love the look, and I did make the silhouette feel a little more silhouette, for lack of a better term, but the fact that I'm basically looking directly into the sun on a clear day, I just love how the leaves looked, and the regular pattern on the leaves as it's going out.
Yeah, I like that, and I like the kind of the hue change. I'm a big fan of teal, and that's some good creativity there. And then the peeking through the sun, and in between the leaves is it's relatively sharp. It looks good.
Yeah. And just for people, like, this is a bit of a preview thing here, just so people can realize what the before and afters will look like. There's the before. So for YouTube viewers, you're going to see it right here and now. And if you're listening on your podcast app, take a look at your screen and you'll see the before picture for Dave that he took here. And then when you go back to the after, which we'll do right now, you can see the difference in the sky. And that subtle little difference, that subtle little color change really makes a photo pop, especially in this case here. So, a good choice. Good choice for color.
Mm-hmm.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's our recent photos and Project Indigo. Very interesting. It was a good discussion on that, Dave. So you'll have to check that out.
Most definitely.
And hit us up if we missed anything. There's a lot of information in that article where we got our points from, and it's a really good read. And I was telling Dwight before we come on here, Dave, I took the dog for a walk this morning, and I let my phone read that article to me because it's so long, and it was just like listening to a podcast. It was really cool.
Is that built into Safari or?
Yeah. So in Safari at the bottom, with iOS 26, it's at the bottom of the screen. You can customize it to go back to the top like it was before, but where you can choose to go to the reader view and all that stuff.
Yeah.
In the options there is listen to the page.
Okay.
And I think it's in 18.5, so you probably have it on yours too.
Okay.
But I just thought that I'm going to play this thing and see how it sounds, and it sounded pretty good. It just used the Siri voice that I have selected, and did a great job of reading the whole thing. And it went on for like 20 minutes or so. So
wow,
it was
about to say it was. When you sent that article, I was thinking I'm at work. I'll look at it when I have time, but
yeah.
Today was not one of those days where I have tons of time.
Yeah. So maybe on your commute you can play it in the car. And
The other thing I may try is the one I think it's put out by Google called Notebook LM, where you can upload information and it'll make a podcast out of it.
Yes.
Now I
actually did that for an episode we did one time.
Yeah. But they made, I don't know if it's new, but there's a standalone app now for Notebook LM instead of having to go to the website. Now I know sometimes it makes up information, so I will be careful.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, all right. Well, I guess we got ourselves a show, and glad you can make it, Dave. And and thanks, Dwight, for your help describing this app. And I think it's something that we're going to be playing with, for the next little while here, just to see what all we can get out of it.
Work in progress.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks to everybody in the YouTube chat for chiming in. And we love seeing people comment and interacting with us as we go through the show. And I guess on that note, I guess we'll see everybody on the next one.
Good night, everyone.
Have a great one, everyone.
Free audio post-production by iPhoneography.com.